There once was a man named Elias, and Elias lived with one consuming fear, the fear of silence, the fear of empty space. Elias was terrified of being alone. He lived in a house he had built himself, but it wasn't a house of bricks, it was a house of mirrors. Each mirror was a person in his life, a friend, a lover, a colleague. Elias spent his days rushing from one mirror to the next. He spent his entire day polishing the glass, ensuring they reflected him. He became a chameleon of reflections. If one mirror wanted him to be funny, he was the court jester. If another wanted him to be serious, he was a philosopher. He had no form of his own. He was merely the sum of the reflections he begged to keep. His greatest fear? That a mirror would stop reflecting. When he sensed a mirror getting foggy, a friend distancing themselves, a relationship cooling, he would panic. He polished harder. He cracked more jokes. He said yes more often. He apologized for things he didn't do. He would rather see a distorted reflection of himself than no reflection at all, because in the space between the mirrors, in the silence, he didn't know who he was, and that absolutely terrified him. One of the largest mirrors in the room, one he polished every day, simply cracked. Elias tried to piece the shards together. He cut himself. He pleaded, but the glass fell to the floor, leaving a massive empty space on the wall. Panic overwhelmed him, and as if that first crack had destabilized the room, another mirror went dark, and another, and another. In a single week, Elias's house, once full of frantic reflections, became a room of empty spaces. He ran from one to the next, but they wouldn't come back. Finally, only a small hand mirror remained, and he held it so tightly his knuckles were white. The storm of abandonment he had spent his entire life fearing had finally hit him. He collapsed onto the floor, surrounded by empty spaces. The silence was absolute. He was, for the first time, completely and utterly alone. He lay there for hours, and then he opened his eyes. He looked at the biggest empty space on the wall, where the cracked mirror used to be, and he realized something that changed everything. It wasn't an empty space, it was a window. It had been there all along, covered by the reflection he was so afraid to lose. And outside wasn't a void. There was a garden, there was the sky, there was a world. He realized he had spent his entire life in a dark room, polishing glass, afraid to lose the reflections, when he could have been outside, feeling the sun on his face. Solitude wasn't a pit, it was a door. This story teaches us a profound truth about the fear of abandonment. Many of us are Elias. We fill our lives with mirrors, superficial relationships, convenient friendships, people-pleasing for people we don't even like, all to avoid the silence, avoid the empty space. We bend, we break, we become distorted reflections, all for fear that people will leave us. But here is the lesson. The fear of abandonment is not the fear of being alone. It's the fear of not knowing who you are when you are alone. You need to have the courage to let some mirrors drop. You need to endure the silence, because it is in that silence, in that empty space, that you finally stop searching for reflections and find the window. It's where you stop asking for validation and start building your own worth. Which mirror in your life is covering up your window? Comment below. What is the first step you will take to start appreciating your own company? Let's share our journeys. If this story struck a real chord with you, leave a like and share it with someone who needs to stop polishing mirrors and find their window. Subscribe to the channel for more impactful stories like this one, which help us turn our fear into freedom. Remember, solitude is not the end. It is the beginning. Stop being afraid of the void. It's the only place where you can finally grow.